Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Comp Tower. This is Haji. Do you read me over?
Pacho, this is Con Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Comp Tower, Comp Tower. Request permission to launch and commence a field op. Over.
Stand by. Pacho, permission granted. Say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah!
Get some. All right. What's crack-a-lacking, everybody? Another Baby Friday is upon us, or Friday's Eve, as I also like to refer it to. We got an awesome show, but before we do this show is brought to you by Castle Global Services. Castle Global Services, they got an array of many different services that can help you, anything both on your residential and your business side. They got products all the way from, Wi-Fi mobile services, and as well as security automation. They also can provide credit card services or merchant services to your business in many different things. They also have, October is getting ready. It's pretty much here around the corner, and one of the products that they offer is healthcare at a very affordable price. So enrollment period is coming up. So if you want to cut your spending, your health benefit spending by more than half, go to Castle Global Services at .acnibo.com and check the impact option and read up on it. If you have any questions, just shoot them an email or give them a call, and they'll be more than glad to walk you through the entire process. All right, so we got all that stuff out of the way. Don't forget that this show is brought to you by, the great Constitution of the United States. So if you like what you hear, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow, as well as refer me to everybody else. And if you don't, then perhaps check out something at sitchradio.com. I recommend, I podcast that, which is a great techie-like podcast, as well as Combat Vet Vision with Chief Sievert on there as well, or many other different podcasts that are, over there through Sitch Radio. All right, so we got all that stuff brought out of the way. So we got an awesome show to you. This is a good friend of mine. I talked about one of my shows about, what motorcycling means to me, or passion about motorcycling. And I met this individual through, not only when I was riding with a group, a Marine Corps group, but he was a part of another riding group as well. But he's also an outstanding mechanic and an awesome racer. So let's go ahead and bring Lucas Jibu to the fold.
What's up, guys?
What's crack-a-lacking, big dog? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just grinding away. As you see, I'm actually at work right now. So,
hey, man, just like we talked earlier, that's what we do, man. I mean, we adapt, we overcome. So, I mean, I know you're turning wrenches and basically making that money. We understand that. So we appreciate and we're honored that you're on our show, man. Thanks for your service, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate the invite. It's pretty stoked to be here.
Hey, so let's go into this. I mean, how did, first of all, tell us about your Marine Corps career, some of the, the awesome stuff that you did. How'd you get started? What was your MOS? All the stuff that you do when you meet another fellow Devildog.
So like a lot of young guys in the early 2000s, I wanted to join the Marine Corps, obviously, after 9/11. My grandfather was a Marine during Vietnam. He went over there for a few years. So that was kind of a big thing too. So that happened when I got the choice, the chance to go. I took it, and then went as a 03, and then got after boot camp and SOI, went to 1-5, 1st Battalion 5th Marines, and then deployed to Afghanistan in 09 and again in 2011.
Oh wow, man! And what were some of the things that you were doing while you were in deployment? If you feel comfortable, sharing some of that. And some of the stories that you may have while you were in during those times.
All right, so for the most part, our biggest thing was obviously coin operations, counterinsurgency, and then a lot to do with helping the locals, rebuild and all that stuff, and try to get them to a point where they don't have to depend on the Taliban and stuff like that to be running, and they can do it all themselves. So, as I say, winning the hearts and minds and all that stuff was our primary objective, in both deployments. And, for, up until, a year ago, it was actually working pretty good.
And let me ask you something. You bring up you bring up a good, kind of a little bit of a segue on here. I know for me, it was basically like, a punch in the gut after the hard work. I unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I wanted to go due to my, Marine Corps related injuries. Both times that I had a chance to go to Afghanistan, I didn't partake. But how was that for, can you share, how was it for you, the events that led, how they transpired last year? How did that affect you, as well as some of your other friends as well?
To be honest with you, like you said, it was a punch in the gut. It sucked, and it hurt a lot. We had, we spent a lot of time and effort working with the locals and whatnot, and the pain and the bloodshed and the death that occurred on our side, as long as the locals and stuff like that, especially with our own guys, and the sacrifices made really sucked that it happened the way it did. Like it kind of felt like it was all for naught. So I mean, yeah, it wasn't pleasant hearing all that and seeing what all was transcribing with all that.
Yeah, I know for me, it made me question a lot of things, and I mean, we're not trying to talk politics and such, but we're all vested, not only emotionally, but a lot of us are physically vested in, well, and a lot of us, whether they gave up a part of their body that might have gotten blown up or whatever, or even those of us who were mentally impacted by the things that we did and saw in the name of freedom and such. I know that it was, again, I was asking questions, was it all worth it? I mean, did my 20 years mean anything? I know they did, but at that time, I was really questioning, a lot of things to myself. How was that for you, bro?
Literally question, whether it was, what we did, was it worth doing it? Was it worth the fighting, the sacrifices, and the losses that we took? Was it worth watching our guys, either not come back at all or come back all dismantled and stuff? And it was a big reality check. And, we tell ourselves, during deployment and prior to deployment, hey, once we get over there, all politics and everything else, it goes out the window. We're fighting for the guys to our left and to our right. And I had to remind myself that that's what we were doing. We weren't worried about politics. It's going to happen. What's going to be happening with it? I went out there for my guys. So that's kind of what's helped me cope with it for the most part. But to still hear the news of everything that's happened and the areas that we fought for and the people we fought for and how they've all have failed. It's
yeah. No, and of somebody, a common acquaintance or friend of ours, Aaron Chief Siebert. I know he's mentioned that on his show, and him and I have talked about it as well. And and I know, because I know he's vested in there, and I mean, and due to, and also his injuries and such. But and I just keep reminding myself, and okay, what would Chief say? And it pretty much resonates with what you just said, because I know 100% Aaron would have, he will say that, and he does say the same thing. Hey, I just got to keep constantly reminding myself that, whether it was Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere else in the name of freedom, that we're just doing it. We're there. We're doing what was asked. What is being asked of us at that moment in time. and it doesn't matter, who's in our left, who's in our right. We just want to make sure that, those individuals, including ourselves, that we come back home.
Absolutely. And that was kind of like the biggest thing to work through, was to keep telling myself that, to try to not revert back to how it was when we first got back.
Right. No, it's understandable. So let me ask you this. So you came back, you did your deployments and all that good stuff. So I know from knowing you and how we've bullshitted in the past. I mean, you're a hard charger, you're a go-getter. I know you would have been a lifer. So what happened along the way in your career that that you had to transition out of the service?
So with the tempo and everything that happened with working up for the 2 deployments, it was pretty nonstop for my entire first enlistment. Then going, 09, we took some losses and some casualties, and then in 2011 that was a lot worse. We went to Sengen and we ripped with 3-5. A lot of people know 3-5 got pretty messed up. So we knew we were going into that area. And then coming home afterwards, when you first get home, you think everything's okay, everything's all right. And then after time, you start noticing the changes.
Right.
There's that switch that you go from being at tempo, being on deployment, where every corner is a possible threat. That switch isn't turned off as easy as we all think it is.
Right.
And that was the biggest problem. And to be honest with you, here we are 10 years later from that deployment, and still have issues with it. So after we got back from Sengen, I re-enlisted in Sengen, and then went to Edson Range, Weapons Field Training Battalion, to work with the recruits and all that stuff for all their field training. That was all right. It was very chill, very relaxed, not very much stress. So it was all right. And then after I got promoted to sergeant, went to sergeant's course, I, within a week of graduating, I was sent straight back to the fleet to 1-4. And, as a lot of guys say, right back to the suck. And the tempo and the stress and everything all went right back to the roof. And a lot of these issues that I thought that I wasn't having, or might have been blind to at the time,
yes,
were exasperated from the stress and the tempo and everything that was going on, and getting put back in that zone of, hey, we're getting ready to deploy. And it started affecting me in a way. It affected not just me, but my wife and kids at the same time. So as soon as it was noticed, and that it was affecting a lot of things in my private life, not just my professional side, which in the professional side was affecting me as well. And I urge everyone to do the same thing. As I went, sought help.
Yeah, no, for me it was kind of the same. And you're funny. It's funny how you say that we're blind to some of the things, because in that environment, hey, you see somebody getting their ass chewed and Gunny flipping a desk, whatever. Like, oh, okay, somebody's having a motivational talk, right now, and it's like, okay, no big deal. But if you look at it from the outside looking in, it's like, oh shit, what is going on through Gunny's head right now? Because it's not normal for somebody to flip a desk and just completely flip their lid. Or just mundane things. But again, that's the environment. I know for me, I almost choked out a fucking lieutenant. I was already a warrant officer. My thing, and maybe I just kept cramming it all in that, compartmentalizing that, all those issues. My kid's mom says, yes, I was different. Maybe she, I don't want to have her on the show, because that would be a hell of a fucking show right there. But you know, my issues started coming out later on in years after, and it was just when I lost my shit on this one lieutenant after many other incidents and blacking out, having these anger attacks a couple times. It's like, oh shit, and, I was like, oh man, okay, this isn't right. What is wrong with me? And later on, I ended up seeking help. And finding different and healthier ways to feed my soul, so to speak. Motorcycle being one of them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that was one of the big issues. Like you say, with one of the lieutenants, I had, a physical confrontation with my XO at the time. And, it was one of those things like that usually would never happen. Like, all right, sir, let's go take a walk into the tree line. Next thing you know, after that happened, and then, my wife was telling me, she was, extremely worried about me and all that stuff. And then what really brought it home to me was my son at the time was only like 3 or 4, and he was scared of me. And that is what really brought it home for me. It's like, okay, with the angry outbursts and the violence and all that stuff, that's when it was like, okay, we need to go do something about this, because I can't. It killed me hearing that from my son, being at such a young age. Right. It was okay. We need to make some changes here. So, unfortunately, it's I hate to say it, but that's part of it. But also, what's part of it is that self-care that comes afterwards. Then, unfortunately, I'd say like this, but the military really isn't too worried about is that writing and teaching you how to turn that switch off and to teach you that self-care to get yourself right again.
Yeah, and I think they've, I agree with you 100%. I will say that they've made some strides, like embedding, right towards the end of my career, they were embedding these civilians, what do you call it? Like therapists amongst each, like 2 or 3 civilians that you can walk in and talk about your issues and so on and so forth, to help Marines, cope with whatever things that, not just combat related, but also personal. And, because a lot of us, we're human beings. We all have baggage post-service. So, not only were you traumatized, before that, now you're traumatized for someone else in the service. So you're double traumatized. And, but to help you. So, but you're right. We can preach that I'm bringing these other things. Okay, but what else? What avenues and self-care are we teaching now to our young service members to help them, utilize and not seek out unhealthy habits or venues to, release some of that pent-up frustration or whatever other things that they have. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I did it, after both deployments, and like a lot of Marines and a lot of, soldiers and service members, that when they get back from deployment, the first thing you turn to is, well, drinking. First it's a party. That's okay, cool, whatever. But when it comes down to, you're drinking a 5th and a 30 rack a night by yourself, that's no longer a party. That's an issue. Yeah. That's coming from experience. When I got to that point, it was like, okay, this is not good. And, it's just, that was part of that realization of trying to wake up and see, okay, we have some other issues involved here. But like you were saying before, with all these prior issues that come along, was when I was working with my psychologist and everything was, okay, yeah, we have combat trauma, but now let's dig deep on, see what else is going on. And it came to find out there was some other traumas from when I was younger, stuff like that, that also needed to be, have some attention brought onto it. And right. I feel like there's a lot of people that do that. And, with a lot of service members, especially Marines, stuff like that, we're all too badass for all that. We think that we're all, cold-hearted and all that stuff, and we try to shut everything off. And a lot of that, talking with the younger service members is, can't think like that, because it doesn't, what's going to happen is when it's all said and done, it comes back a lot harder. And it makes everything that much more difficult to deal with in the long run.
Oh yeah, I could tell you. For me, everything just came, and I'm pushing 50 here here pretty soon. Not yet. I mean, I turned 49 here tomorrow, but you know, my issues came alight in my mid 40s, and they come back hard. And I mean, it just how do you deal with them? You know, so. But for me, you know, one of the venues, and you know, and I know it is for you too, to start releasing some of that. You know, I've always been an avid motorcycle rider, and you know, wrench turner and such. So and so for me, that kind of, and it's to this day, it's still how I release some of that stuff. And so how did you get into the whole, you know, motorcycling and, you know, wrench turning and even racing now? How did when in your part of your transition did you get into that stuff?
So you know, I've always liked wrenching, even as a child. You know, being in the garage with Dad and all his friends and stuff like that. I've always tried to be, you know, with the adults to try to get my hands dirty and try to do all that stuff.
Right.
For the first, you know, couple years, it was kind of like the occasional wrench here and there in the parking lot while I was active. The barracks, you don't have garages and stuff like that. And then, you know, after I got back from deployment, it was trying to find that adrenaline again. You know, so I talked to my wife and I was like, hey, I want to get a motorcycle. And I was thinking, like, I wanted a crotch rocket. I wanted to go fast. She was thinking you need to get a man's bike and get a Harley. So, you know, I came home with like an 09 650 Ninja 650R. And she looked at me, she goes, what the fuck are you doing? You need to go get a real bike. So, I mean, I only had that bike for a couple months and then got a Harley. And then, you know, just a couple of us that I was serving with at Edson Range, they were all on cruisers too. And it's like, hey, you know, let's start a motorcycle club, you know, be like one of those guys. And shut down pretty quick, but not in a bad way. It was kind of like one of those, hey, how about you hang out, look around, and see what's out there. You know, pretty sure you can find a group of guys that would probably be along the line of what you guys are looking for, right? And that's
Right.
how it was, and that's how I got, you know, involved with the club that I'm in now. You know, most of the guys at the time were all active duty still. We did a lot of stuff for veteran charities and organizations, still do. And then, you know, while I was still active, you know, hanging out with all these guys that were riding all the time, I just started working in the garage a lot more. You know, started pulling bikes in. You know, I found out that motorcycles are a lot easier to work on than cars and trucks. You don't have to lay on the ground. Your neck's not hurting you as much. You can bring the bike up to you. You don't have shit falling in your eyes nonstop. So that was pretty appealing to me. And, you know, I like making things go fast. So, you know, started out doing like small cam jobs and stuff like that, and it just evolved. And then here I am, you know, at a shop, and we're, you know, building straight up performance motorcycles. So, but backtrack to the racing part of things was it was about a year and a half, 2 years after I retired, there was a motorcycle drag race at one of the drag strips I used to go drag racing at with my Mustang way back in the day. And the guy that was tuning my bikes all the time had just started hitting the track with Tony. I remember if you met Tony or not.
Yeah, I remember.
From Shred Motoko, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely by accident, just saying. But Eric, you know, the guy that was tuning my bike at the time, was like, hey, you know, this whole drag racing stuff is pretty cool, but how about you come out to the track with the big boys and let's see how fast you can really go. And at the time, I was a canyon shredder. I thought I was the fastest dude in the world. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to go to the track. I'm going to lap all you guys. And then I got humbled very, very fucking fast. You know, once I hit that turn one, it's like, well, this isn't the canyons no more. This is totally different. But I'll tell you what, though, within those first couple laps, we got off the track, and I was like, okay, what the fuck do I got to do to start racing? You know, I got, you know, and then that's how it's evolved there. And here we are almost 5 years later. We went from racing nothing but sport bikes because there was no Harley classes to now every race organization in California has Harley classes. Moto America has Harley classes. And then we have the Bagger Racing League, which is strictly just for, you know, American beachwood. So, yeah, I mean, it's evolving, it's growing, and that's what we're trying to push. And now it's, you know, just fighting to try to stay relevant. relevant because it's grown and grown so fast, which is awesome. I love it.
No, I remember when you and when you invite. I mean, you kept trying to invite me when I had the XR 1200, which by the way, it's for those of you who don't know out there, it's a Harley Davidson that they produced for about three years when Buell and Harley went their separate ways. So they put out this bike. It's kind of, it looks like they call it a flat track bike, and it was pretty popular outside of the U.S. I love that model, and yeah, so I went out with you, and you're right. I mean, I thought I was pretty good on the track, and I'll throw my leg on pretty much anything on two wheels, minus scooters. Scooters are just for scooters are for fucking Key West, going to Key West for the Bahamas purposes only. That is it. But hey, I mean, I'm not knocking them, but I mean, I have written one. You just won't see me publicly on one, so, but I was when I went to the track with you, and then with the rest of the crew that was out there. I mean, I was quickly humbled. Because I thought I was hot shit, on two wheels. But I mean, you passed me, and I mean, you guys all passed, and then your bike was pretty, pretty souped up. But you had this other individual there. I mean, that bike, it looked. I knew it was a Harley. But the way the pegs and everything with the setup on that thing, I mean, this dude was keeping up with the European and Japanese bikes like you wouldn't believe. I mean, this dude was just moving. I mean, shit, so were you. I mean, goddamn.
Yeah, I mean, now I got rear sets on the bike now and all kinds of shit to make it a little bit more racetrack friendly. It's worked out pretty well, and it's just always with racing in general, it's always evolving, always trying to be better, faster. What can we do to the bike to make it better, faster? And it's grown to what it is. Actually, she's sitting right back over there. So,
So what shop are you working with now? I mean, let's give it let's get a quick shout out to the shop that you're in, and if you could show us some really cool shit. I mean, we would love.
Well,
to
we got
see
the boss man actually standing right here. You want to say hi? What's happening?
How you doing, man? Welcome to the field op.
How you doing, man? So that's Josh Rumlett. He's owner operator, and he's actually done a lot of stuff with Warrior Built Foundation and whatnot. And then when this whole racing thing happened, he's the guy that believes that, I mean, his motto is because slow sucks. So when it comes to the whole racing thing and whatnot, he making guys. So give you a little tour real quick.
What was that you said that last part? Because we're when you were inside, I know you're having a little bit of connectivity issues.
So a little tour of the shop.
Nice.
So yeah, we do a little bit of everything here.
So what would be something basic, like let's say I just got I've been riding for a couple of years. I wanna make my bike go a little bit faster, feel a little bit more stable on the road. What are some of the things that the average person can do on the not too expensive side, more affordable, to make their bike perform that much better?
So one of the big things that's really overlooked that I think so, I mean, it's something that every guy replaces anyway, but for some reason it's one of the things that people always want to go cheap with is tires. Everyone thinks that buying a cheap tire is good and easy, and they do all this stuff and they wonder why their bike's handling like shit and can't corner, stuff like that. So I mean, that's just like the basics to begin with. And then, I would think something easy that your normal dude can pretty much bolt on by himself would be like let's start off like a suspension setup. Very good, solid suspension setup. And I don't mean like your $200 shocks you can find on eBay. Like a decent, whether it be a Race Tech, Oleans, GP suspension, something like that. It might cost a little bit more, but when you get on a bike and it handles and it stops and actually rides good and comfortable, it makes you want to ride your motorcycle instead of dreading riding your motorcycle. It's a lot of those small things that make a huge difference. So, I mean, as far as what your everyday guy can do is something like that. It's bolt-on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and shout out to the folks at Race Tech. You're right, because you and me pretty much we run around the same circles with through the War Build Foundation, America's PTSD Foundation, Semper Fi Fund, and all those other groups. But Race Tech, man, they put out some really shout out to them. Shit, I mean, when I had that XR 1200, I mean, they as because I was through War Build, they were able to. I mean, I only paid. I mean, usually their suspension setup, you're looking about $2,000 at least, front and rear. I mean, and basically they just charged me, I think, half of that. And I mean, that XR 1200 used to handle. I mean, it was a beast. I mean, that bike will cook your fucking right leg off because and that was just another reason why I sold it. Because I mean, the exhaust setup is just shit. But man, that bike at the track, I mean, towards the end, right before we went to work in Qatar, I mean, that bike was dialed in, to a T. And so whoever ended up buying it in Arizona, because I had to leave with my son in the meantime, I mean, they got, you got yourself a heck of a deal and a heck of a badass bike. So you're right. People neglect, they'll put all kinds of shit on the engine, but neglect the other thing that keeps the bike on the road, which is the tires. And you're right. 100% of the tires and obviously the suspension, stabilizing that, that beast, basically that rocket in two wheels is the next best thing. So that way, I mean, it just shaves off even seconds of your lap time.
Yeah, no, I run Race Tech on both my bikes, on my Dyna that I ride every day on the street, and then on the race bike, that's got Race Tech front and rear. And props to them. They've done an amazing job with it. I've ran some of the other companies. I won't say any names, but they've been some of the top of the line, suspension guys, and threw the Race Tech on, and just by doing just the shock swap on the rear at Chuckwalla Raceway, I dropped 7.5 seconds just from a shock change. So yeah, and with Warrior Built being on board with them, it's been a huge help, and it just the Warrior Built organization by itself is just amazing. My race program wouldn't be what it is now without their help. So, up to them.
Well, Lucas, I think we're starting to get close to that time. But so, any social media, anything? Where is that somebody that can find you and follow you like I do? I mean, I do watch some of your videos and stuff that you put out on Facebook. But do you have an Instagram and any other stuff that you want to put out there, man? Yeah.
So I got the Facebook, it's just Lucas Jabu on there. And then I have my Instagram, which I run everything through, whether it be the family stuff or the racing stuff. And that's going to be joker.1911 on Instagram. And that's pretty much where you'll find me for the most part, here and there. I don't live on it like a lot of the guys do, but it's pretty much my main source of the social media. And if guys have questions, regarding just motorcycles themselves, or they want to get into racing, that's where to reach me at. And it happens quite a bit, and I'm always here to help and lend a hand.
That's awesome, bro. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for, and in such a short notice. And I mean, taking time during, during work at that, man, I mean, that's dedication, and that's the type of individual that you are, bro. You're an awesome person. I'm honored to call you a friend and a buddy and a fellow service member, man. Thanks for your service, bro. And can we bring you back on the show?
Absolutely. Anytime.
Hoorah. Get some, bro. All right, man. Well, peace out. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate you. And we'll be talking.
All right, Blair. You take it easy.
Take care, man.
All right.
Hey, well, that's it for today, everybody. Before we sign off on the show, just like Lucas just mentioned, I got your back. He's got yours. If you got any questions in regards to motorcycling, or hell, if you've been struggling with depression, anxiety, ruminating thoughts, and all just the other shit that the world sometimes can dish on you, before you do something extreme, reach out to me, reach out to a friend, do a self buddy check, and utilize the resources that are out there for you. Military One Source, Semper Fi Fund, America's PTSD Foundation, Warrior Build, TRICARE. I mean, shit, that list just goes on and on. Hell, me. But just don't do anything stupid that, in the end, we're the ones, with the burden and asking, what the fuck happened. So, but, that's it for today, everybody. Thanks so much for signing on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow, and recommend me for the analytics and shit. And then with that being said, I'll see you next week. All right, get some. I'm out.